Hello, we're joined with Fred Felleman, who is running for Port of Seattle Commissioner position number 5. Would you like to go ahead with your 2-minute introduction?
Hi, thank you. I'm Port of Seattle Commissioner Fred Felleman, and I thank you for this opportunity to give you just a few reasons why I'm really excited about running for re-election. It's been an honor, tremendous responsibility to be able to apply my expertise and civic values to the citizens, residents of King County, and I feel there's still a lot to do and a lot for me to contribute. It's really been a transformational time at the port, from the executive leadership to the waterfront investments and the airport investments, and I'm really proud to say that I had something to do with all of those things, and so it's really been kind of tectonic times, as some folks refer to it as. And just real quick, I want to appreciate you investing initial endorsement in me when I had no voting record for which you to evaluate, and it was a risky thing for a lot of people, and all indications are that everybody says I exceeded their expectations, and my joke is only because they were so low to begin with. But I did end up with 25% of the vote in a 9-way and 58% of the vote in the general, and I've been accruing endorsements to show from the whole pest commission and on up that people seem to have been able to work with me, and I think we've gotten a lot of good things done. So I hope you'll feel confident in endorsing my campaign now that I can show you what I can do. But broadly speaking, I set out to do advance the port's century agenda to be the cleanest, greenest, most energy efficient port in the nation. But obviously you can't do that without realizing that regulations, environmental stuff affects humans and people's lives. But the goal is to expand these opportunities for folks while at the same time reducing the port's greenhouse gas footprint. So upon arrival, I created the Energy and Sustainability Committee, which basically set new greenhouse gas goals, collaborating with King County and others, and as well as creating a new position of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So that gives me about all I got to tell you, but there's a lot more to say.
Excellent. Well, if you want to turn over the piece of paper I put in front of you, we will go around the room and each ask a question. We want to go ahead and get started?
What are your priorities and what do you plan to accomplish if you are re-elected?
Well, really carrying on what I feel that we've laid some really good groundwork on is being able to show that advancing environmental causes are essential to the port's well-being and social license to be a port. I mean, greenhouse gas impacts are obviously everybody's problem, but we run a big, smelly operation, and there's things that we can do to small changes that can have big impacts. And so it's not a nice to have, we gotta do that. And also we have to be better neighbors in doing what we do. So we are an economic engine that has impacts on our community, both positive and negative. Our job is to make it as broadly positive, to include as many people in that social net as we can, while at the same time really being cognizant of being good neighbors along the way. So obviously, it's a huge county. Extending our reach further into the county is a major goal. I've been the co-chair of the Highline Forum, even though I'm a Ballardite, and so I have really involved myself in understanding the concerns of communities around the airport to sort of expose my education, but throughout my tenure. That's been a real challenge. There's only so much we can do. So getting sustainable aviation biofuels into the airport is one of the huge things that we can do to address our greenhouse gas issues, at the same time the air quality around those communities. I'm also very involved with the Duwamish River community, which also has a disproportionate environmental impact and are really quite well organized to help benefit. And I'm going to create this, I think, 7th generation fund for the Duwamish River, and we just created this $10 million airport community fund for the airport. So, and we had $1 million energy and sustainability fund. So these are ways in which the port can use some of its economic engine to put back into the communities and leverage our mutual talents.
Hannah, would you like to ask the next question?
I would love to. Let's see. What opportunities do you see to advance the value? Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Hold on.
Oh, I should be reading this along with you, huh?
I mean, it's fine.
Question.
Yes, thank you. Guys, you really can't ask me to do 2 things at once, okay? How should the Port Commission act to improve wages and working conditions for taxi drivers? In this era of Uber and Lyft, How does the port address issues of access, equity, and fair wages for drivers?
So when I came to the port, I thought I was going to be dealing mostly with ships and planes. That was sort of like what I knew something about, mostly ships. But upon arrival, Uber came to town, and I am right now was editing the motion that's going to be held at the next week's meeting on the taxi contract. I can't tell you, this has been like the festering nightmare of the port, and it is just a remarkable thing that, and Uber has been just this disruptive force on the lives of the cabbies. The port has this unique thing that we have a exclusive contract with a group of Eastside for Hire right now. It used to be Yellow Cab, before that was another, and so there's been this contractual relationship. But then the drivers weren't getting their fair shake of the deal. So we're right now in the process of opening the door up. So still the same number of cabs, 400, maybe 405 or 412, but we'll tell you next week. But they'll be individual contractors. They would be able to align themselves with whatever a company they want to, and we will actually pay for the curbside management. So every driver will pay, like $6 a trip, but right now they would be paying $6. They're only going to pay as much as they use it. Where previously they would have to just pay forward and maybe get paid back. So everything about this is trying to be able to maintain a population small enough that the drivers could make a living, to at the same time not have the fee be too prohibitive, and it's a lot about the access to the airport. But it is a disruptive moment, and we are almost feeling like we are hospice care, because the cabs are just getting the heck bitten out of them.
Thank you. Moira, want to take the next question?
What opportunities do you see to advance the values of a Green New Deal at the port, supporting a strong local economy in ways that are environmentally sustainable and economically equitable?
Well, this is why I'm here. We just installed the second solar array on the roof of the headquarters. We had one on top of the roof of Fisherman's Terminal. We have a blue carbon project where we're doing carbon sequestration next to the cruise ship terminal at 91. We pulled 2,000 creosote pilings out of Elliott Bay, and and these things all have, every time we clean up something in the Elliott Bay, people say, oh, this is an expense. I go, well, how many jobs did that generate? How many, fish restoration, that's an expertise. I'm trying to get, actually, this is one of the reasons I'm trying to do this Duwamish Fund, especially outreaching to tribal kids who who have family and depend on the river, that they should be part of the restoration of the river. But there's also just broad policy. I got the port to support 1631, right, the carbon initiative, where our #1 legislative priority this session was the low carbon fuel standard. We stood up with Senator Cantwell fighting against offshore oil and gas development because we have Fisherman's Terminal. We were standing there at Fisherman's Terminal with our fishermen because we have long-term renewable interests over these short-term exploitative gains. The fact that the Port of Seattle has taken these, physical processes as well as policy positions is a pretty transformational moment that I feel very proud to be a part of. There was a couple of other examples that I can't completely keep track of. We're now also a part of the King County 4-city gathering. We're the only port, this is something that Dow produced, the King County climate initiatives. So we're trying to align our interests and collaborate in ways in which we can have bigger greenhouse gas impacts. And I'm also now piloting this project for the Orca Echo program. Port of Vancouver has this with quiet ships by slowing them down. So next week we have a meeting with the Seaport Alliance and are going to look at ways in which we can try to do our part when the whales are here in the winter.
Excellent. I think there is one more question, so go ahead.
Fred, what infrastructure investments are needed to properly support the needs of the port?
It is an extraordinary moment at the airport, and we're like busting at the seams, and we're at like 49 million passengers, and we have a plan right now to build out to 56 million. We're almost it's almost 1 million people a year for the next 8 or 9 years. It's just inordinate. So we can't build fast enough to do that. At the same time, we have to start looking, and we are committed to start looking at other airports, because we're not gonna squeeze it all in. We're not like, you know, San Francisco, where you have Oakland or San Francisco. We're like the only date in town. So, and everybody's like, great professional expression, right? But there's, you know, and Everett isn't gonna cut it, you know, so I'm looking at hopefully maybe stripping off, say, air cargo, potentially going to JBLM, where you don't have to worry about security as much, and then we have more capacity for passengers. But one of the challenges, you know, everybody says, oh, go to Moses Lake or something. The airplanes are pointing out, you know, connecting flights are the challenge, right? So you can't be too far apart. At the seafront, at the seaport, T5, we just chunked out $350 million to turn what was formerly the Shell parking lot back into a container terminal. Obviously, before that, it was a container terminal. But you know, with $40 million set aside for the state-of-the-art stormwater system, we're putting in capacity to plug the ships in so they don't have to idle at the dock. We're making railway quiet zones, and the trucks backing the terminal operating equipment will not go beep, 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 but will have this low frequency sound. These are all things that we did working with the community, not required by NEPA or SEPA. And I did this upon arrival to be able to show the port that if you pay it forward, you can get it done without winning in a lawsuit. Because winning by legal action is actually losing as far as I'm concerned. And the only challenge we had was one guy, not an organization, and all the people that were threatening to sue us, one guy didn't want us to pile drive on Sundays. And that's what we did. But I mean, that to me was a huge success upon arrival. And now we are building in this much more responsible, community responsible fashion.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going to take a couple of follow-up questions, and so 1 minute answers for those. Summer?
So I had a question. Often when I go to the airport, I get in I don't travel that much, so I don't pay for pre-check, TSA pre-check. So I get in that really, really long line.
And there's that empty one right next to you.
There's all these empty ones. Now with Clear, they've also started letting certain people skip the line. And it really seems like what this is about capitalism and the currency of data and money. That if you are willing to give up your data and you're willing to give up your money, you jump all these lines, and that just seems so incredibly inequitable. And wanted to see if you had some opinions on that, because it seems like it's getting worse rather than getting better.
I'm violently in agreement with you. I just was talking to Lance, our new executive at the airport director, and in fact we were going off to fly someplace together, and we're in the cattle line, and there's Clear right there, and he just slips this up. We step over and we walk through Clear. Now, never do I play the port commission card, because that's like, you know, immediately the way you get in trouble. But I said to him, yes, if you have this fast route, you can pay extra for that. But if it's open, it should be used. Like, how many of those people standing there not doing anything is just intolerable. We are going to address that. It is a flagrant thing. Given the constraints of that airport, you got to use every square inch of it. It is not even close to fair, or a good use of a resource. So we're totally going to fix that.
Vice Clayton, and then Jeff.
Does the port have a working relationship with Boeing with regard to pollution and the Duwamish?
Yeah, a working relationship is that we're both responsible parties, and we're paying millions and millions of dollars. Yeah, so you have Boeing, King County, and the port, and the city are like really holding the bag on the Superfund. But there's like 100 other, parties that we're sort of like trying to corral. And so Boeing actually went forward and did a large cleanup last year. And from what I understand, did it in a better than had to level. And so different parties are going at different times. Right now, this was supposed to be a really big year to do cleanup. And there was just some disagreement that just happened. So a lot of lawyers have been paid and not a lot of cleanup has occurred. But, so we do have a working relationship with them on the cleanup, but it is rather legally constrained. So although, like I said, I think they just set a high bar that we're gonna all have to follow, which is kind of nice. I mean, yeah. I'm happy about that, but
It's fine.
that's that's where we're at, litigiously connected.
All right, Jeff, and then Ben.
So Fred, you referred to festering nightmares. So during your first
That's
term,
one of several, you're right.
I'm going to bring up another because during your first term, the presidency changed and our border has taken on new meaning, especially the travel ban in January a couple years ago. So both our seaport and our airport are part of our national border. I'm wondering if you could just talk broadly about how the port has responded to the current national administration's focus on the border. I know there was a story recently about Boeing Field, which I know is not under your jurisdiction, being a place where people were deported. Just how has the role of the port changed since the presidency changed with respect to the border?
That day will be never forgotten, when he closes the door and we have inbound flights from the Middle East and nobody's told, right? So these people are landing and are being told they have to be deported. And so really, to her credit, Courtney, just because she knows all these lawyers, right? And she just we called the forces, and within, an hour or so of knowing of this, we all descended on the airport with, I forget the legal eagles, the teams of lawyers that do this stuff for free.
Northwest Immigrant Rights Project.
They were amongst
Columbia
them, yes.
Legal.
Yeah, and so I'm sorry, but so anyway, so they basically were brought in to help process these folks, making sure they know their rights. And since that time, we've come up with this welcoming port policy that we're going to try to do everything we can to make sure people know their rights that come to the port. And this is also being included, again, mostly through Courtney's initiative, about sex trafficking and other things like that. There will be signage in the bathrooms, people to call, and things that the people should be known to look for. I'm sorry.
Ben, and
That's probably the last one.
that's part of that one.
So the president's been rolling back protections regarding oil drilling. What can our port and you specifically do to protect our shores, protect our waters after these rollbacks?
Well, it is a phenomenal bully pulpit, and one of the things that I've been really happy to try to do is sort of do the unlikely alliance. Like when I was just in the environmental community, I would look to things like the port or the commercial folks to sort of broaden that net. So, we were part of the Climate Solutions Alliance for the LCFS, Low Carbon Fuel Standard legislation, 1011. A lot of good it did us, right? But it was one of the few climate bills that didn't pass, but we're going back next year. But like I said, we stood with Senator Cantwell at Fisherman's Terminal specifically to beat up on the call for opening the offshore to oil and gas development. The thing that, we were doing before was facilitating, the exploitation in Alaska by providing our infrastructure for that ability. And so we don't have any intention to do that again. But so there is both the physical accommodation and the policy assertion.
Thank you.
Great. And you can go ahead and take about 30 seconds to wrap up.
Well, one of the things, I came to the port with 20 years background, sat through more commercial meetings than almost any other commissioner I think has ever sat through. And I thought I knew a lot. And it's amazing how much more there is to learn. And with the Seaport Alliance, it's like a whole nother board of directors. It's another 5 people on there. And I find it fascinating, and I feel I'm contributing. It is frustrating not having to do yet another job as well. And I think the citizens of this county would want me and others to be full-time.
Thank you so much.